Hello, this is David with the Shepherd School, and today what we're going to do is make some Seitan, which is basically wheat gluten that some people use as a meat substitute. All we got is a 5-pound bag of flour. The higher the protein or the gluten in it is better. So some kinds of flour do better than others. Bread flour, a lot of that has a higher gluten mix than regular flour, but we're just using all-purpose. And basically, just dump the whole bag in our bowl and add some water. Now you want to make sure this makes a dough ball and not a batter. So you don't want to add too much water in the beginning. And you might ask, why are we doing this? Can't we just use meat? Well, a lot of people, matter of fact I do, and I recommend it for everybody, is when they do their food storage to follow the LDS standpoint and have a couple 100 pounds of wheat as the basis for your food storage, because it's cheap and it's easy and it stores for a long time. Well, the problem with that is if you've got 400 pounds of wheat per person as a year's supply, you probably need to be able to use it for something. And this is just one other way of using that wheat, even though, like I've said several times, I'm not a vegetarian. I like my meat, but, bread every day is going to get old. And I've said several times, I'm afraid that in a catastrophic disaster, or if the economy gets so bad that I have to live off my food storage, a loaf of bread a day might contribute to appetite fatigue. And I want to make sure that I'm going to have something to eat I'm not going to have to force myself to eat. A lot of people say, well, in a disaster, I'll eat what I can get. And I'm not trying to invent the wheel. And so I look at a lot of historical events to see what happened, when people had this problem. And you look at things like the potato famine in Ireland. They had barley and corn and, oats and stuff in their barns, but they didn't eat it because they said, that's animal food. That's for the horses. Probably should have had a bigger bowl. And so people starved to death while they had food because it didn't fit within their cultural guidelines, And that's why I recommend doing this now and getting used to this stuff before you got to do it, alright? Because just think about, if you've got kids, how hard it is to get them to eat their peas. Imagine if all you had were peas, and by introducing new stuff along and along, maybe you'll get them used to the idea of being flexible and experimenting, which not only helps them prepare for disasters, but it also prepares them for life. Not that I tell you how to raise your kids, they're your kids, but I think it's a valuable thing to think about. So what we're doing is, once we get this to a big dough ball, where it all kind of stick together, we're going to rinse out the starch and just leave the protein. So I'm going to keep working this, and when I get it kneaded into a big ball, I'll show you the next step. Alright, so we just kneaded for a little while longer. You can see now it's a big ball. It's very important that it's a dough and not a paste, because if it's a paste, then all the wheat and the starch is going to break up and go down the drain with the next couple steps. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to cover it with water, and we're going to let it sit for 20 minutes. And as you can tell, this water is already starting to get a little milky from the flour, from the starch in the flour. And that's good. That's what we want it to do. So we're going to come back in 20 minutes and show you the next step. Okay, so we've let this sit. See, the water's kind of milky. So we're just going to knead it a little bit. See how it's getting more milky? That's the starch coming out of it. Now what we're going to do is pour this off into a colander. Tell you what, I'm going to pull out about half and do this a half at a time. I'm just going to run a little water through there as we knead this up. My colander wasn't sitting up good in the sink, so I put it in the bowl. That precludes me from running the water through it constantly. For all the zombie hunters out there, brains. Okay, so that's the texture I want. Now what we have to do is we have to cook it. And you can either boil it until it floats, or you can do a crock pot. We're going to do a crock pot. And this is where, now this doesn't have any taste right now. This is where you get your taste. And we're going to use some broth, a little bit of garlic and herb, a little bit of Italian seasoning, a chipotle flavor bouillon cube, and an onion. Okay? And we're going to dump all that in a crock pot, and I'll come back after I get that set up. There it is. We've got some onions floating on the top and my spices. Added a little water, and I also added just a little bit of soy too, because, you know, why the hell not? So, like I said, this is pretty tasteless and bland, but that's kind of good because it readily absorbs with flavors of whatever you're cooking it with. And so we're just going to keep it here on high in the crock pot for a couple hours, and we'll turn it down low and let it stay overnight. And when it's done, it should float up to the top. And at that point, depending on its texture, depending on what I want to do with it, you can either crumble this up, or you could slice it. And if you slice it, you can fry it or do whatever you want. I think a lot of people cook it with barbecue, like stir fry it with barbecue sauce, and kind of get a barbecue flavor. But anyway, we'll see after it comes out, and we'll figure out what we want to do with it. So we'll come back in a couple hours. Okay, here's our finished seitan, and I know it doesn't look all that appetizing, but there it is. And so what we're going to do is cook that just like meat. Probably slice it up and saute it with probably some barbecue sauce or something, and maybe some fried rice. We'll see. But anyway, what you do with it's up to you. I just want to show you how to make it. So till next time, you can catch us online, www.teaandgun.com.
I've got a plan, fits my point of view. I'm getting